What is that? Is that some video that she sent somebody?
No, this is live. Out of Paris.
What do you mean live?
Optic nerve? It's camera and mic activation.
I wish we could take credit, but the Brits wrote it.
Activation? Yeah, her laptop's off. Or it was, she just forgot to close it. Of course, how would she know? This shit is so slow, the webcam light doesn't even turn on. I always wonder what was under those.
Welcome to Kermode Uncut. There's a new Oliver Stone movie out in cinemas at the moment called Snowden. It's a story of Edward Snowden, who was the whistleblower who kind of lifted the lid on US surveillance culture. And it's got some quite good reviews. I have to say my own feeling about it is that it's not a great movie. It's certainly not vintage Stone. It's a little pedestrian, it's a little ordinary, it's a little predictable.
I feel like I'm made to do this.
The biggest problem, however, is that it's nothing like as engaging or dramatic as Laura Poitras's documentary Citizenfour, which first told this story in, for my money, a much more riveting fashion.
Every call you dial, every cell phone tower you pass, friend you keep, site you visit, and subject line you type is in the hands of a system whose reach is unlimited, but whose safeguards are not.
I remember seeing Citizenfour when it was first screened, just before its opening, and we were told at the beginning that there was a sequence at the end that nobody had seen yet, and they were keeping completely under wraps, and nobody could say anything about it.
I don't know your name.
Oh, sorry. My name is Edward Snowden. I go by Ed.
And I remember them sitting there watching the movie thinking, this is terrifying, edge-of-your-seat stuff. It's absolutely nail-biting. I mean, it's so dramatic. And then you watch the Oliver Stone film, Snowden, and it's not that riveting, and it's not that terrifying, and it's certainly not dramatic, despite the fact that it's got an awful lot of typical Oliver Stone shouting in it. And I started to wonder whether the problem was that if you see a great documentary, and then somebody makes a drama about it, the drama is always going to suffer. I mean, think, for example, about Bill Condon's film, The Fifth Estate, which is the story of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. I mean, it wasn't a terrible film. It did get very bad reviews, but it wasn't terrible. It was kind of okay. But it was nothing like as engrossing or indeed as informative as Alex Gibney's documentary, We Steal Secrets, the story of WikiLeaks. I mean, that really told the story in a much more dramatically engaging fashion. Now, this has happened with Gibney before. There's an Alex Gibney documentary called The Armstrong Lie about Lance Armstrong, the cyclist, and all his run-ins with the authorities about doping scandals. Well, Stephen Frears then made a film called The Programme, which basically told the same story. Yet somehow the dramatised version of the story lacked the urgency, lacked the edge, lacked the drama, bizarrely enough, of the original documentary. And I started to wonder whether I could think of a case in which there was a drama and a documentary doing the same story, in which the drama was actually the better of the two. The closest I could get was Man on Wire and The Walk. Now, Man on Wire is a better film than The Walk. It tells the story of Philip Petit, who tight-roped between the Twin Towers, an extraordinary story. And The Walk dramatises that story with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who of course stars in Snowden. But the thing that The Walk has, which we don't get in Man on Wire, is moving footage of that tightrope walk. I mean, actually, one of the brilliant things about the documentary is that despite the fact that they took all these movie cameras up there, there is no moving footage of Philip Petit doing that walk. There's just still photography. Many people who've seen the documentary think they've seen moving footage, but they haven't. When it comes to the Zemeckis and The Walk, what we do get to see in staggering digital 3D is that walk, the walking out onto the tightrope. And perhaps for that reason alone, that drama stands up in its own right. And then I thought of another example, and I know that most people won't agree with this, but this is an example of a documentary and a drama that are at least on an equal footing. It comes, of course, from Werner Herzog. Werner Herzog's Rescue Dawn, which is a dramatisation of a story he originally told in Little Dieter Needs to Fly. Now, when Rescue Dawn came out, again, some critics were a bit sniffy about it, and the standard sniffy response was, well, it's not as good as Little Dieter Needs to Fly. I actually like Rescue Dawn, and I think the fact that Herzog did both stories, the documentary version and the dramatised version, means that somehow they have an integrity. They work as companion pieces. I also know that Herzog had quite a hard time making Rescue Dawn, but I think it's a better film than many people have given it credit for. Now, I'm not entirely sure what lesson we can learn from this, but just looking at those movies, it is so often the case that the documentary is better than the drama. I mean, perhaps it's the fact that documentary filmmakers have defined the drama in a story, to tell their story, to make their documentaries dramatic. Maybe that's what gives them the edge. I'm not entirely sure. But if you can think of an example of a story being told simultaneously, drama and documentary, and the drama definitely being the better one, let me know what it is, because with the exception of those cases that I've noted, I'm struggling to think of a good example.
So think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. So emails, chats, SMS, whatever.
Yeah, but which people?
The whole kingdom, Snow White.